I'm Jim Check. You're watching Kelowna Now. I have with me Alexandra Wright. We're a candidate for the BC Conservative Party,
Yep.
And then you were ousted for a replacement of Gavin Dew.
Correct.
And then you were kind of going to think about it, whether you're going to run or not, and you've come to a decision.
Yes, I have. No, I will not be running in this election. I think it's just too rushed. I think, unfortunately, the voters just don't have that appetite right now for thinking outside of the box because everybody's so desperate to get rid of the BC Conservatives. So having said that, I talked to Ashley Ramsey yesterday, and I fully support her run. We had a really good chat because I've always thought that I had some fundamental differences with BC United that I couldn't get past. But Ashley just seems like a really stand-up person. She has a lot of integrity. She's built this community up, and she really seems to care about her voters and her constituents.
And she announced yesterday that she's going to run as independent. I did a live stream with her yesterday. Yeah. So, political future for you?
No.
Not? City politics?
I've had my last attack on Twitter.
You've had enough? You got a great tan, so you've been in something, right?
Well, I didn't have to door knock this weekend, so that helped.
You're out in the sunshine, enjoying that Okanagan sunshine.
I was, yeah.
So do you feel better? Actually, got a little bit of weight lifted off?
I really do, actually, yeah. I was pretty stressed out the last couple of weeks, and I just felt really betrayed, and that's not a good headspace to be in. So I'm feeling much better now.
Yeah. So how do you see, you were in that, so now, the BC Conservatives has kind of had that rise, and then, this BC United thing probably didn't go as well as they expected between Kevin and John, in that. Bumpy for sure, and everybody expected, the captain would have said, put on your seatbelts, we're going to hit some turbulence here.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bumpy, maybe a little too long in deciding who's got the seats, on the airplane. Buckle up, here's your seat, but, maybe there's still some people wandering around the aisles.
Well, the problem was, too, is, 4 months ago, John Rustad said we've passed the point of a merger or any kind of talk about this.
Right.
It's time to
I did hear that many, many times when I interviewed them as well.
Yeah, so again, it's just one of those, messages that perhaps was not quite truthful.
Well, in his defense, things change, right? Do you know what I mean? So I think when people make those statements, they shouldn't say them absolutely, right? It's less likely, I think, you know what I mean? Because otherwise you end up in this box and people say you're not truthful because the reality of the situation is when information changes.
It's very fluid.
Yeah, you're a lawyer, that things changed based on the new reality of what's happening today, right? So if somebody offers you, hey, we're willing to fold our party, you're saying, well, okay, right?
I suppose. And of course, the other promise that was made back then was that no BC Conservative candidate would be shuffled in order for a BC United candidate to make way. So I think that's really unfortunate too, because that's another dilution of the message. Yeah,
and then again, I guess we could say when the devil knocks on the door with a deal, I'm not saying he's a devil. There's some...
Which was knocking.
I don't know who's knocking on whose door, but I'm just saying that there's an old saying that you sometimes have to give the devil his due. Right? So there's a song, I think, like that. Is it the devil went down to Georgia or something? I'm not sure.
Or Kelowna, I don't know.
There you go. So anyway, at least you've found your piece, I guess, right?
I have. And I think, it's really been a very interesting education for me because I always voted for the party and not the person. And this has really showed me that the party is made up of the people. So you have to trust the people. You have to have respect for the people within the party if you're going to vote for them.
I think the municipal politics is more about that. It's supposed to be represent, you get elected, you represent your constituents. And we've in provincial and federal politics, it's really been about the party, especially the last few leaderships. It's been, I think Jean Chrétien is one of the few that in the past said, I let my MPs talk, and they got in trouble, and they got in trouble, not me, right? So I let them have some responsibility. Yeah. Whereas I think we've seen muzzled. In the last little while they're kind of just like one voice thing, and they don't even answer the questions for the most part. Especially in the federal, when they get asked a question, they just start reciting.
They
policy
just
positions or whatever, right? And especially, I think even the Prime Minister was asked yesterday about, Jagmeet Singh pulling his supply and confidence agreement, and then, he just answered with his $10 daycare instead of answering the question, right? So that's not really respectful to the Canadian people either, though, right? When they're asking for accountability, right? So
exactly.
So I think more accountability would be good in politics in general, right? So
well, we hold our politicians to a very low bar, I think, is the problem, right? We expect them to lie to us.
Is that why you ran? You want to be a celebrity?
No, I wanted people to hold me to a low bar.
I think we do need more accountability, right? And I think that the bigger trouble is that even media getting access. You get a lot of access when people are running.
Yeah.
You get almost nothing when they're in power, right? We should be getting more access, ones that are in power, because they should be held accountable, not only when they need us, right?
Exactly.
And I think that needs to change. And I guess that's on media too, to push more. And I think I'm a big believer in what we do, like longer form questions that we get to know the candidates and different things, as opposed to, like hits, like where you go out and, like a national organization will get that 30-second hit. And then I think a lot of politicians are scared to even talk. And then I've had that feedback, because they're scared they're going to get clipped, right? They're going to just take a piece of that.
Exactly. Well, I wasn't even allowed to have a podcast while I was running for the BC Conservatives, because they were very scared that something would be clipped out of context, right? But without being able to talk, you can't portray who you are as a person and what your values are. So it's a double-edged sword, right?
So what is in your future then? Other than picking weeds?
I mean, as I said, I have a job, so I will continue my job. Obviously, I'm still going back and forth with the party. I would like some funds to be returned to me, so hopefully that happens without me having to, proceed accordingly. But it's not looking so positive today. But I do just want to kind of put this behind me. Obviously, I am still very interested in politics, but I think, as you and I have discussed, running for politics might not be the best way to start messaging some people, some things to the people, right? So we're doing a lousy job of telling people to get out and vote. We're doing a lousy job of telling people about the issues. They are falling for the sound bites, which is the bigger problem, right? Yeah.
I do think that people have to exercise their responsibility to vote. In Australia, they make you vote. If you don't vote, they fine you.
Yeah, and in Mexico, they won't let you drink before you go in.
Yeah, so I need it too. But I'm just saying, like, people need to, especially in these elections coming up.
Yeah,
I believe like the provincial and the federal election are very, very important to Canada. I think Canadians can send a strong message on accountability in general, on accountability and on family values and all those things that are important to people. Like sitting on the sidelines and just complaining is not the answer, right?
Yeah. The second thing we need a politician to actually promise that they're going to change first past the post and then actually deliver on it. Because right now, as you know, we have no voice in the West. Right. And it feels like we have no voice in the Okanagan provincially, really, because everything happens on the coast.
Yeah, and I would say, like, it's you can kind of see the actions, and I've talked to quite a few people on this, is outside the Lower Mainland, not a lot of the issues get tackled. Like, if you look at our forestry, again, Canfor, big announcement this morning, closing more sawmills, another 500 jobs in our forestry sector, our second biggest sector in British Columbia in employment. And I worked in the lumber industry when I was a youngster. Mm-hmm. And to lose that much, you know what I mean? And Alberta's forestry industry is growing, ours is shrinking. We have more trees than they do. We have more history than they do. And Canfor is a big British Columbian company.
Yeah. And
they're basically saying, like they're not really interested in British Columbia.
Yeah.
They've lost hundreds of millions of dollars, they say. And the sadder thing in that is those 500 jobs are 500 families, right? Mm-hmm. And they're typically small communities. You know what I mean? Like Bear Lake, Houston, Fort St. John, those kind of things. Those are high-paying jobs as well. Like those are jobs that you can buy your pickup truck and your house and raise a family.
Yeah.
And they're not, I'm not saying high education, but they're good blue-collar jobs.
Yeah.
Hard to replace jobs, right, for those people with the skill sets they have.
Exactly.
And to lose that is, when people say, they'll just have to get retrained. I think I interviewed the forest minister and the jobs minister. So, there's retraining. You
need a job to be able to go to.
Yeah, but what do you do with your house in Houston? Do you know what I mean? Like, and this coffee shop that you invested in Houston, nobody has money to go to the coffee shop. What do you do with the tire shop? What do you do? You know what I mean? Like, exactly. I don't think that they look at that, and there's so much.
No, but you get free drugs.
Free drugs.
So.
But there's so much push and emphasis on the Lower Mainland and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
then less about the rural BC and outlying communities. And I think, wildfire mitigation should be one of our priorities, right? And, I think more energy is spent on, I won't get into it, but we need to look at the real problems and how we can mitigate some of these things.
We need the right people making decisions in the room too, right? Because, the interesting thing about running for this election is, you realize that the qualifications of the candidates are minimal, right? You don't have to have a successful track record in business. You don't have to have a degree of any kind. You can basically be a smooth talker and get in. And so what happens when you get in and you have no clue about basic economics or, what is going on in this sector over here? How can I help it? Because the answer the government has right now is, yay, more taxes. That will create more money, and then we can dole out, to people.
Yeah,
right?
so I guess the defense of that argument would be there's the bureaucrats that are installed and that kind of do continuation. And they're the ones that are supposed to have the knowledge, and the politicians are supposed to make the decisions.
Yeah, unfortunately,
I'm not sure if the bureaucrats in the forestry sector are doing a good job, though.
No, and you see it with Bill 36. They want to install their cronies in underneath them anyway. So they're not installing the best person for the job. They're installing the person who they owe a favor to. So, it's the whole back-scratching phenomenon.
So there's lots to fix, no doubt about it, right? And the one way that most British Columbians can send a message is to vote, convince your people in your family to vote, your neighbor to vote,
and do your research
vote,
before you vote.
And try to find out as much as you can. KelownaNow will do its best to have longer form interviews so that we can actually get to know the candidates, what they say, and then we're going to do our best to hold them accountable.
Yeah,
right.
But you can also email your candidate. I know when I was running, I got emails and I answered every one of them because I thought it was very important that people know that, hey, I'm here, I'm a person, I will respond, and that won't change if I get elected.
Well, I can tell you right now, most of the candidates will respond during the election. And then we have right now we've interviewed Kevin Falcon numerous times, John Rustad numerous times, Sonia Firstino once, and we've reached out to David Eby for an interview many times, and we don't even get a response. So
interesting.
Where's the accountability there? Where's here's an Okanagan media outlet reaching out? Why won't you come on? And I'm asking you right now, why won't you come on? Yeah. And we should, because if I can talk to John Rustad, Kevin Falcon, and Sonia Firstino, and if you're the one in power, then you should also speak to the people, especially the people of the Okanagan.
Absolutely. Agreed.
But I think that needs to change where we can get more access to politicians, because I think what holds municipal elected officials more to account, because you see them in the grocery store. Do you know what I mean? Like they can.
They run when they see me.
They have to answer to people more so, though, right? Because if you're detached from your people, it's easier not to respond to them, right?
And in all fairness, I don't think that our city council does the best job of responding either, because they tend to respond once or twice, and then if you push them,
just figure out where they shop.
I can't afford to shop where they shop.
I think they would probably beg to differ on that, but I'll leave it at that. But anything else you want to talk about right now?
To your point, accountability, right? How are we going to fix this? Because I've seen it personally with what's going on farmlands around my area. You see it all over the place, and you just seem to hit a dead end with these bureaucrats. So I don't know what the answer is. Do we need some kind of change in the legislation where they have to respond to you? And this freedom of information thing is a joke, because they're supposed to respond in 30 days.
And we've done a few of those, and lots of times we get a lot of black ink.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, first of all,
redact almost everything, and you're just like, just send me some black pages, right? So,
well, first they send you an email and say, well, you have to call in with your $10, otherwise we're not going to do anything further. So then you call in. So they've bought themselves a couple of days there. Then on day 30, if they haven't responded, you email them and say, hey, where's my freedom of information? And they say, oh, we gave ourselves an extension. So stuff like that needs to stop, right? Like, we can't just be giving them all the power without having them having to jump through any hoops to prove that they actually deserve that power. I
had a really good interview with Mario Canseco that explained the polls, and then the BC United Party obviously felt the pressure of the polls.
Yep.
And he's saying it's going to be an exciting little while for him, especially because that's where he does a lot of his work. And then we have the BC election here in October.
Yeah.
And then he does a lot of work in the U.S. with the U.S. election in November, and then possibly somewhere in there a federal election between. It could happen, any time now into the spring or something like that too, right? So there could be a lot of opportunity for Canadians to have their voice.
Well, I think this will be really interesting too with this provincial election to see how mad people are with this BC United, last minute rejigging. So are people going to express their discontent by not voting at all because they're just mad at everybody? Are they going to get out and vote for their local independent because that's the one person who they understand actually is working on their behalf and not in furtherance of a party? So,
or is the C waiver really big thing and fueled by the federal Conservatives as well, because he's obviously, I mean, the polls coming out for Pierre's party are very strong, and then obviously right time, right place is what Mario said for the BC Conservatives. The right logo, right time,
the right name,
similar messaging, all that kind of stuff. The stars aligned for him, and possibly one of the biggest branding mistakes done by the BC United.
Yeah.
At the same time, all kind of like lined up, all the stars kind of lined up, and
I would argue that the BC United actually did a really good rebrand this year.
Yeah. So I mean, Mario had a difference of opinion there, but so there you go. We all get to have our opinions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So far in Canada, we're still allowed to do that.
Let's hope that continues. With that said, we'll end that right here. And thank you for coming in. And thank you for watching Kelowna Now.